Good to see you all here. Let's take care of some family business first. This is Avery Royster, who was born May 26, 2025. She came in at a whopping 5 pounds, 7 ounces, and a length of 18, and let's call it 1/4 of an inch. So congratulations. This is the, is this the first son of our first child of your youngest son?
Yes.
Yes. Well, I thought, Henry's old enough to be a great grandparent, but, and I'm sure he is a great grandparent, but I really thought this was a great grandchild, so congratulations to them. Please open your Old Testaments to the book of Ruth. And while you're turning there, thank you so much, all of you, for being with us. We got a lot of visitors with us. We're very encouraged by your presence with us and the encouragement that you give to us. I began a series on the book of Ruth back in December. I do these once a month. This is our 5th lesson now. The first one kind of set the scene because the book of Ruth begins with 3 deaths and ends with 3 births, and the genealogy of David. The second was the record of the journey now that Ruth and Naomi taking back to Bethlehem and all that pertained to that. The third lesson we entitled Redemption is Coming, and that's when Boaz is introduced into the story, and Naomi kind of seems to wake up from her depression. And then last month, the 4th lesson was the thread of redemption and seeing how God's plan of redemption is working its way through Ruth. This lesson is entitled Redemption Completed, or we could have referred to it as the wedding. This study is winding down. I still haven't decided if I'm going to do a 6th lesson or not. But I'll let you know when the first of the Sunday of the month comes around. If I'm doing Ruth, you'll know I decided to do that. But all of the threads that we've been looking at, all of the customs, all going to be tied together. And again, while this is a short book, it's just filled with some wonderful truths for us to discover. The text for us this morning is the first 17 verses of chapter 4. And so rather than read that here up front, as I like to do, we'll just cover it as we go along. We are going to look at this section today in 3 parts, which consequently makes it a scriptural sermon because I've got 3 parts to it. Part 1 is Old So-and-so, and I'll explain that later. Part 2 is Witnesses. And part 3 is going to be the culmination of redemption. You can keep your Bibles open to Ruth 4 this morning. There are going to be other passages, a couple of others, 2 or 3. They'll all be up on the screen, so you don't have to worry about turning there. And unlike our last lesson a month ago, I don't think this one's going to be quite as long. So everybody's already feeling lighter on their seat because of that. So let's begin with part 1, Old So-and-so, and let's read the first 8 verses. Meanwhile, Boaz went up to the town gate and sat down there just as the guardian redeemer he had mentioned came along. Boaz said, "Come over here, my friend, and sit down." So he went over and sat down. Boaz took 10 of the elders of the town and said, "Sit here," and they did so. Then he said to the guardian redeemer, "Naomi, who has come back from Moab, is selling the piece of land that belonged to our relative Elimelech. I thought I should bring the matter to your attention and suggest that you buy it in the presence of these seated here and in presence of the elders of my people. If you will redeem it, do so. But if you will not, tell me so I will know, for no one has the right to do it except you, and I am next in line." "I will redeem it," he said. Then Boaz said, "On the day you buy the land from Naomi, you also acquire Ruth the Moabite, the dead man's widow, in order to maintain the name of the dead with his property." At this, the guardian redeemer said, "Then I cannot redeem it, because I might endanger my own estate. You redeem it yourself. I cannot do it now." Now, in earlier times in Israel, for the redemption and transfer of property to become final, One party took off his sandal and gave it to the other. This was the method of legalizing transactions in Israel. So the guardian redeemer said to Boaz, "Buy it yourself," and he removed his sandal. So let me just quickly go over what we have seen before we get to this point. We've seen the death of Elimelech. We've seen the death of his sons. He's left Naomi unprotected. We already saw the bitterness of Naomi in her decision to go back home, and she has blamed God for her situation. We also saw and were impressed with Ruth, who is Mahlon's Moabitess wife, and widow now, and her willingness to remain with Naomi. And in a patriarchal culture like this, a young woman needed a husband for protection, and she needed children for her old age to provide for her. And so Ruth's willingness to stay with Naomi with no prospects for either one of those is a pretty amazing act. What a sacrifice she made. Elimelech had property when he left, and now there's no male heirs to reclaim it or to work it. Naomi desires that the family name not be lost, and of course, as we saw last time in the process, that Ruth would be cared for, and Naomi's family will have a continuing legacy. So Naomi needs a person to prevent that from happening and to provide for Ruth. It would need to be a blood relative. You can read about that in Deuteronomy, the 25th chapter. A kinsman redeemer, or I'll think of it in a minute. Who out of the goodness of his heart and the vastness of his bank account, I suppose, could repurchase the land or purchase the land from Naomi and redeem it, work it, keep it, and then marry the widow of Mahlon and assume the support of the family, and knowing that out of that marriage the first child that would be born would be the heir of Mahlon, going all the way back to Elimelech. And this person was called not only kinsman redeemer, the guardian redeemer. Now Ruth and Boaz have already met in the threshing barn, and all the plans of this redemption have kind of been set in motion. But there is a snag. And the snag is in chapter 3 and verse 11 and 12, where Boaz tells Ruth, "And now, my daughter, don't be afraid. I will do all for you, do for you all you ask. All the people of my town know that you are a woman of noble character. Although it is true that I am a guardian redeemer of our family, there is another who is more closely related than me." And so there's somebody else that's in line to do this. And that's where we are right here in this chapter. So Boaz goes to the city gate and sat there. And as we're going to see, it just seems like as soon as he gets there, the fellow comes along here. Now let me just stop here, because when I picture a city gate, this is kind of what I picture. Just a gate into the city. This happens to be the new gate in Jerusalem. I will tell you, there's not a lot of room there for a meeting, for gathering. But ancient cities had meeting rooms, and here's a couple of pictures of the meeting room there. You can see there on the left, the entryway into the gate. You can see how much space there is there. And then on the right is a meeting room. And oddly enough, Mike, did you know that 2 years ago, yesterday, was when we were in Dan? Came up on my time hop, and along came this video. And so it took me a while, but I figured it out, because I'm not all that tech savvy, but I got this one. So here's a video of the meeting room at the ruins of Dan. And you get an idea of the size of these rooms that were just inside the city wall. You can get 12, 14, 15 people there, and there's going to be another one come around the corner here, right there. So when you think city gate, I need you to think that. And so he's waiting, and he goes to the city gate, and it says, "And behold, the man was there." He came along, and Boaz invites him, and as you see in the text there in verse 1, "Come over here, my friend, and sit down." And this is where the Hebrew gets interesting. I know you're not all interested as interested as I am in language and words, but you've been treated to my preference all along, so I don't want to say live with it, but we're going to go through this. The word here that's translated my friend is the Hebrew word Poloni Almoni. Now I know you're just dying to say this out loud, so go ahead. Poloni Almoni, okay? It's actually two words, and Poloni Almoni means such and such, or so and so. What that tells me is that this man who Boaz, in our translation, almost every translation has friend. Come here, my friend. You know, instead of, come over here, so and so. But that's what it says. Which tells me that this man's name does not deserve to be known. If you have no name, or your name is whatever, or so-and-so, or bucko, or whatever you can think of when you can't remember somebody's name, if you don't have a name that's memorable or important, you have no right to rescue the name of somebody else. So then Boaz invites 10 elders from the town, along with other people. As you read the text, it's not just the 10 elders, there's a crowd of people here, which always makes me stop. Do you remember watching Westerns on TV or movies? And when you went into a saloon, what was there? All kinds of people. What are they doing? What? I know that's what they're doing. But if you're drinking, you've got to pay for it. And they're there all the time. So how convenient that Boaz here, hey, I just happen to have 10 elders here. Let's bring them in. And there's another crowd of people. It just always amazes me. And it's very convenient that he's got 10 elders here. So Boaz tells old so-and-so the situation that's available to him. Naomi's back. She's selling the property of Elimelech. You have the right of first refusal with regards to this. And he says, I suggest that in the presence of the people and these elders here, that you purchase this land. And if you don't want it, let me know, because I'm next. And so old so-and-so, oops, I don't need to go any further, says, I'll redeem it. Now listen, if this is the first time you're reading this story and you're reading it along, you're so excited about Boaz and Ruth, when he says, I'll redeem it, you go, oh, because you want Boaz to get the girl. You want our hero to step in here and get this. Well, so he says, I'll redeem it. And then Boaz plays his trump card. By the way, so-and-so, on the day that you buy it, you also acquire the widows of the dead. So you're going to have to take care of Naomi. You're going to have to marry Ruth. And if it was just Naomi, the guy would say, well, this is good because she's way past the age of childbearing. The land will be mine because there's nobody else. But you marry Ruth, who is quite capable and able and of an age to have children. As soon as she has that child goes back to Mahlon, inherits the land, and so you don't have land that's unencumbered. You're going to have to give it up. And so old so-and-so declines the offer there in verse 6. He says, then I cannot redeem it because it might endanger my own estate. You redeem it for yourself. I cannot do it. In verse 8 again, buy it yourself, he said. So he declines the offer. Listen, this is an echo of what we've seen already in this book and what we will see later in the New Testament. To a certain extent, it reminds us of Orpah. Orpah was unwilling to sacrifice her possible future to stay with Ruth, especially to stay with Naomi. And consequently, she lost out on that blessing that God would have for her. It also reminds us in Mark the 10th chapter of the rich young ruler, when Jesus said, here's the thing you need to do. You need to sell everything that you have, give it to the poor, and come and follow me. And with the same mindset that so-and-so has here, He was unwilling to give up his estate, to lose or endanger his estate to follow Jesus, which I think is perhaps why he's unnamed here, why he's referred to as so-and-so, because he wanted to keep everything that he had, in fact, keep whatever else he got and not give it up later. He's unwilling to fulfill his God-given responsibility to step in here as the kinsman, guardian, redeemer. And consequently, he will lose the blessing of God. And his actions, listen, is just an indication of the selfishness that lurks at the gates of every one of our hearts, of wanting to hold on. Now, verse 7, we have a cultural note. So in earlier times in Israel, for the redemption and transfer of property to become final, one party took off his sandal and gave it to the other. This was the method of legalizing transactions in Israel. So at the time that the book of Ruth was written, apparently, that custom was no longer done. So when the writer is going to say he took off his sandal, they would be saying, huh? Why did he take off his sandal? So we have an explanation of this here. Let me just say, there's lots you could say about that, but I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. But it's the equivalent of signing a paper that says, I'm foregoing this opportunity. I don't know if you've watched Shark Tank, but you'll see a shark every once in a while give several reasons and say, for this reason, I'm out. Okay, that's what he's doing here. For this reason, I'm out, in Kansas sandal. There are a lot of similarities here as well to Deuteronomy 25 that we're not going to cover. But now Mr. So-and-so is out of the picture. He's off the stage. He's not in the story anymore. He's off and on like Orpah was. So let's move on to the second part here, the witnesses. And let's read verses 9 and 10. Then Boaz announced to the elders and all the people, today you are witnesses that I have bought from Naomi all the property of Elimelech, Chilion, and Mahlon. I have also acquired Ruth the Moabite, Mahlon's widow, as my wife, in order to maintain the name of the dead with this property, so that his name will not disappear from among his family or from his hometown. Today you are witnesses. Now I will tell you, I don't know how many of you listen to Bible being read on tape, CD, stream it, whatever. When we read a text, we just read the text, we read the words. We don't usually put any emotion in this. This is how I think that it says. Then Boaz announced to the elders and all the people, today you are witnesses. Elders and all the people, you're witnesses. I have bought from Naomi all of the property of Elimelech, Chilion, and Mahlon. I have also acquired Ruth as my wife in order to maintain the name of Mahlon. Listen, I need you to understand that when he reads this, he is overjoyed. What was standing between him and Ruth? Old so-and-so. Okay? He was going to spoil everything if he decided to take it. And he was up front, said, I encourage you to do that. In his heart, he's saying, please don't. Because he and Ruth are in love. They just have grown in that. And his words here are judicial. In a sense, he lists off all that he's acquired. I've acquired the family property, the redemption of the family name, and this is new and just a part of what happened as a result of the meeting with so-and-so. But he's also jubilant because we already knew or hoped that this was going to happen from the meeting in the threshing floor, and maybe the two transactions are separate, but listen, you need to read it that way because today is Boaz's wedding day. I don't know how old he is. He's not married, and he's got a wife now. And really, if you were thinking that this is the story of Ruth, what would you say? Oh, we're done. The story's over. This is where it should end. This is a happy ending. But 3 times we have the word witness mentioned in verse 9 and in verse 10 and in verse 11. And so the question that we need to ask is, well, what are they witnessing? Well, if you read verse 10 again, I've acquired Ruth the Moabite, Mahlon's widow, as my wife, in order to maintain the name of the dead with his property, so that his name will not disappear from among his family or his hometown. Today you are witnesses. So beyond redeeming the land and redeeming Ruth by marrying the widow, he is also redeeming Mahlon's name and Elimelech with him. Can't remember if I told you what Mahlon means that we read in chapter 1. The name Mahlon means sickness. And so if we were using it as a name, Mahlon would be called sicko or a sickie. I mean, he's a sickly kind of a person. But now his name's going to be associated with inheritance. It's going to be associated with blessing. And officially, though, while Obed is going to, the child that's going to be born, I just let the cat out of the bag, didn't I? Officially, he is Mahlon's heir. In the genealogy, he's going to be Boaz's son, as we see in Matthew chapter 1. And I need you to appreciate that Boaz was under no obligation to perpetuate Mahlon's name. This moment is about resurrection. He is raising the name of the dead. They're raising the dead of Elimelech, and the dead name of Mahlon. And think about this. Resurrection, that just as it goes along in the story and in the future, escalates in size. We have the resurrection of these individuals as their names are not going to be lost from the rolls of Israel. That's going to lead to, as we go down through the end of Ruth, we see David being born, which is the resurrection of the nation, and via his line to the ultimate renewal that's going to take place, the renewal of all things that happens through David's son and Obed's son, grandson, down the line, of all things in Christ. Including the resurrection now of everyone who has ever died because of Jesus Christ. I mean, it just grows and grows and grows. And so they're witnesses of this, perhaps just in the inception of it, but there are witnesses of it. So let's now read chapter 4, verses 11 and 12. The elders and all the people at the gate said, "We are witnesses. May the Lord make the woman who is coming into your home like Rachel and Leah, who together built up the family of Israel. May you have standing in Ephrathah and be famous in Bethlehem. Through this woman, or through the offspring the Lord gives you by this young woman, may your family be like that of Perez, whom Tamar bore to Judah." So what do the witnesses say in response? They say, "We are witnesses." They accept the responsibility that has been given to them, and then that is followed by 3 blessings that they give. The first one is toward Ruth. And it would seem that Ruth's journey from being a Moabite to being an Israelite is here complete. What we're reading here in this text echoes what Ruth promised in chapter 1 and verse 16, that your God will be my God and your people will be my people. It has happened. And in fact, it's not only complete, Ruth is now listed among the elite of Israel, the elite company. She's likened to Rachel and Leah, who were the founding mothers of this nation. And Ruth, too, will found a legacy through childbirth. There's 2 terms that are used here in the text by the witnesses, and that is the idea of building and of a house. In 2 Samuel, excuse me, chapter 7, last part of verse 11, going down through verse 13. This is God speaking to David. "The Lord declares to you that the Lord himself will establish a house for you. When your days are over and you rest with your ancestors, I will raise up your offspring to succeed you, your own flesh and blood, and I will establish his kingdom. He is the one who will build a house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever." And then, of course, that's Solomon with regards to the temple, but it's also Jesus Christ and the kingdom that he's going to establish. The second blessing here is toward Boaz. Both families, Elimelech and obviously Boaz, are from Bethlehem and Ephrathah. So was Joseph, who's going to, with Mary, both have this as their hometown. But I think this blessing is pointed at Boaz. It's his hometown, and out of his hometown, Ephrathah and Bethlehem, is that Israel's future is going to be blessed. And then the third one is, as we just read, the child that was going to be born, the offspring the Lord gives you by this young woman, which would be speaking of initially of Obed. And then she makes that statement, and we made a point about this a month ago. May your family be like that of Perez, whom Tamar bore to Judah. So Ruth, like Tamar, we have a foreigner. Tamar was a Canaanite. Ruth is a Moabite. Them being added into God's family and the lineage of redemption and salvation that's going to result in Jesus Christ. And so she's going to be praised and selected by that because of what Yahweh did. All of these things are witnesses of resurrection. So let's look at the third part here, and that is redemption is complete. And let's read verses 13 through 15. So Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife, and when he made love to her, the Lord enabled her to conceive, and she gave birth to a son. The women said to Naomi, "Praise be to the Lord, who this day has not left you without a guardian redeemer. May he become famous throughout Israel. He will renew your life and sustain you in your old age, for your daughter-in-law who loves you and who is better to you than 7 sons has given him birth." That's as far as I want to read. So, again, I just want you to remember how the story of Naomi began. She lost her husband, she lost her 2 sons, and in the process, she lost her hope, her land, her future. And in fact, it was so bad that when she came back, you'll recall, to Bethlehem, and they said, "Can it be Naomi?" She said, "No, don't call me that. Call me Mara." She demanded that her name be changed, which means bitter sorrow. Because again, in her sorrow, she was blaming God for her grief and loss. And this section begins with the birth of Obed, which is her legacy, which is her future. And listen, I think I mentioned this as well last week or last month. As you're reading and hearing commentaries, if you get online and watch people teaching about it, they say some ridiculous things about what happened between Boaz and Ruth on the threshing floor. And any idea that anything untoward happened there is absolutely annihilated right here, because we are told that he took her, she became his wife, they consummated that marriage, and out of that marriage was a conception. So the conception of Obed happened after they were married. There was nothing untoward that happened before that, and shame on anybody who says otherwise. And this birth of this child prompts almost the Greek chorus of the women of the village. We heard from them in chapter 1 and verse 19. Can this be Naomi? She's so changed in her countenance and her demeanor, they can't even understand who it is. And now in chapter 4, they also sing about her redemption. Praise be to Yahweh, who is providing for you, who has not left you. See, Naomi thought that he had, thought that God had abandoned her, and she was incorrect. I want you to just notice this quick chart here of Yahweh who's providing for you. In chapter 1, she had the loss of her husband. In chapter 4, she gains a kinsman redeemer. In chapter 1, she lost her 2 sons. In chapter 4, we're told she has a daughter-in-law who's worth more than 7 sons. In chapter 1, she felt the loss of her future and the loss of the name of the family. In chapter 4, we have a secure future, and the name is going to be continued all the way down to the Messiah's genealogy in the New Testament. And so you kind of ask, well, who's the Redeemer here? Is the kinsman Redeemer, or the Redeemer that has been talked about, is it Boaz? Is it Obed? Is it Yahweh? The answer is yes. All 3. So let's read the last 2 verses in our text. Then Naomi took the child in her arms and cared for him. The women living there said, "Naomi has a son." And they named him Obed. He was the father of Jesse, the father of David. And so we see here now the final state of Naomi. She has a son. And her response, Naomi's response here, is not in words, but rather in actions. It's her son because she's caring for him. She's holding him. This was the son that was born to preserve the name of her husband and of her oldest son, Mahlon. And so in that sense, thus, he becomes her son. It's her heir. And he is named Obed, and Obed means worker. It means servant, one who performs a servant. We could even say, with regards to serving, that he is a worshiper. And I don't know what to make of this. I just know it's unique in Scripture. He's named by this chorus of women. They called him Obed. Listen, they had listened while Naomi lamented in chapter 1, and now Naomi is listening as they rejoice over her son, whom they named servant. So, while the book is called Ruth, and she certainly is, without a doubt, the heroine of our story, this is actually Naomi's story. And because it's Naomi's story, we can relate to her because we've all suffered loss. We've all suffered disappointment. We found ourselves in fear. Maybe we found ourselves in depression. And we can get the idea that God has abandoned us. Where's God? Where are you? Where are you when I need you? And in this book, we see that God never abandoned Naomi. He had her in mind all along and had a redeemer in mind for her. And so I just want to remind you that you too have a redeemer. And redemption is available to you in Jesus Christ. I was thinking about this last night and as I was going back over my lesson again. If today you decide that you want to become a part of the family of God and take advantage of the redemption that Jesus has provided for you by his death, there will be a chorus of singers praising God, not only in this room, but the angels in heaven will be singing. And you'll receive a new name that they will call you. And that is Christian. That is a child of God. And we have everything ready if that's what you want to do. If you believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God and you're willing to finally give up control of your life and change your mind about the way you're living, being willing to confess your faith that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, then we'll baptize you. The song that Jonathan has selected is Blessed Assurance. That was my grandfather's favorite song. And it takes submission. You'll have to submit. You'll have to give up and let him control the things that you are doing. But it's blessed assurance because it's true and it can happen, and it can happen for you today. So if we can help you with that, please come forward while we stand and sing.